Hello guys, welcome to another video. If you have many years as software developer, you may have seen this kind of comments in code. I don't know you, but this looks like something weird, something that maybe couldn't even care about it. Is there a way to avoid code that will never happen? And what about cases when we cannot continue the execution of our application or program? Is there a way to just stop the program? Fortunately, today we will explore in Swift a really magical type, never. We will talk so much in detail about it, but not just that. We will also cover SwiftUI because never is a type really used in SwiftUI. And if you love this video, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe because there is really few information about never. This is my contribution for the community. Let's get started. My name is Pete, and this is Swift and Tips. In the previous video, we talked about closures, and we saw there that some functions can return a type. For example, in this case, we have a function that is returning an int. We are expecting an int as a return type, and we are returning 10, nothing serious. There are some cases where we actually don't care about returning anything, kind of. For example, here we are just printing a string and that's it. However, saying that we are not returning anything is kind of incorrect because every function in Swift must return a type. Yeah, that's totally true, even for this function. What Swift is doing internally here is that it's returning a void type. And what is void? Well, first of all, let me say that Swift is autocompleting for you the return type in the definition. This is a void type, and Swift is also autocompleting your return statement. Here is mandatory for you to explicitly say what do you want to return. So if I remove this, immediately we receive that we are missing a return value because we are explicitly say that it's an int. So anything that is not a void will be required for you to set in a statement return. Swift is inferring, again, that you are returning something that is void because you are not declaring anything in your returns definition. However, what is internally returned is this, an empty tuple. If you don't know what is a tuple, let me just explain it really simple. With a tuple, you can encapsulate in parentheses many values, many different objects in just a single object. In other words, a tuple is an object like, a struct, and actually is a value type. This is really helpful, for example, if you want to return multiple values at the same time in a function. You can just access a number, making reference to the order of the properties. Sometimes this is cool, but maybe in other cases you want a better naming convention, so you can add also names to your properties. In that way, you can use really easy and really meaningful what you want to access in this tuple. This is pretty nice. But let's go back to our example. So we already know that we are returning an empty tuple because everything that is between parentheses is automatically a tuple. However, you might didn't know this, but void is actually an empty tuple. Yeah, void is just a type alias of an empty tuple. So in other words, this is correct. And also, this is correct. This is kind of boilerplate, but yeah, you got the idea. Everything in a function must be returned, no matter what. Okay, now the question is, if all the closures and functions in Swift must return a value, how can we represent situations where we cannot actually return anything, literally? Because, I don't know, something catastrophic just happened, or it's about to happen, or if a precondition is not fulfilled, what will happen then? Fortunately, we are here in this video. One of the proposals by the community was introducing never type. In simple words, return type is just a type, a special type that represents that something will not return or will not terminate correctly. Because if you remember, in every program, every function must communicate that everything is fine. But in this case, never is providing capabilities to tell in Swift that something is totally wrong and the program must stop immediately. This is basically in iOS, for example, that your app must crash because we cannot continue and there's no way to recover from that error. Some people in the documentation of Swift, that it's down below in the description, call never has an uninhabited type. But this is a fancy way just to say that never, it's not a type that you can instantiate or get anything from it. Let me explain why. For example, if we call something like fatal error, this is a function that immediately will crash your app. And if you read the description here, it's something that is unconditionally prints a given message and stops execution. The message is optional, but what is not optional is that your app will crash. This sounds terrible, but crashing is the only way to stop the execution, at least in iOS, right away. There's no other ways to close your app. If we add this, you may see a warning that this will never be executed. And that's fine, because once we touch this, everything else will be ignored and will stop the execution of the program. Let me run this. And we got this fatal error. But let me explain more. Let me go back here to fatal error. We are seeing here that fatal error is returning a never type. Again, this is the representation that this function will return something that will stop the program. But if we analyze never, we will see that it's just an enum, a frozen public enum. And we have a couple of definitions of comparable. But okay, if it's an enum, where are the cases? We don't have any case for this enum. So this is a clever way to create something that we cannot use for any purposes. It's just very specific to telling Swift that something will happen and will be unrecoverable. This is the primary way to use never. However, we can do more than that. For example, other usage that you can use with never is to represent in Swift something that literally would never happen, which is the name of the type. Let's see an example. Here we have an enum with a demo error, and here we have a function do something that will do whatever we want. Let's imagine that it is calling an API, and we have a completion with a parameter result that, depending of the case, if everything is okay, we will return a string, otherwise we will return a demo error. The way we are identifying if this is an error or not is with this random boolean, saying if it's everything okay. This is true, then the completion will return success with okay, otherwise we will return a completion with a failure random error. Let's then call this do something function. As you can see, through the closure, we are getting this result value that contains as a result an enum, which represents a success or a failure. So, in the case of success, we just want to print whatever we receive. Otherwise, we just print the error. Let's run this. We got okay. Let's try one more time. In this case, we got a random error. That's nice. This is a way to just use result. However, what will happen if in our logic we cannot get any error for any reason, but we still want to use this behavior with result? You may already seen this kind of comment in any code if you have much time as a software developer. That's a signal that this is no good, because if we have a case that suppose that will never happen, eventually could happen, otherwise it's just redundant. What we can do is using never to explicitly say that one logic will never be executed for any reason. And how can we do that? If we go back to result definition, here we are telling that the success case will return a string and the failure case will return a demo error. But if we don't care about the error, what we can do is just setting never. What is happening here is that, we are not getting access to anything else here. And in fact, this failure it's asking us for a never parameter. However, you cannot instantiate anything about never. Yeah, as you can see, you cannot use never as a regular object. This object is kind of abstract for Swift and it's protected from any initialization. So yeah, this is not good. So then, if we cannot instantiate anything and we require a never parameter, what we do then? Because Swift will then fail, right? Actually, no. In this case, Swift is smart enough to identify that never is a special type and it's optimized to ignore whatever requirement is declared as never. That's why in these kind of examples, if we remove this and we just care about success, we can actually remove this and our code still working. Yeah, and result is not caring about the error type. Actually, if I remove this case, look at that. I got the error that switch must be exhaustive, and I got only the success case here. This is awesome. And by the way, if you are wondering, hey, why not creating a enum with no cases and use it as never? You can use that for the example below. You can create your own version of never, but I honestly don't recommend that because never is optimized in Swift to identify first when something must terminate and crash, but also in cases like this when we need to tell in Swift explicitly that a path in our logic will never be executed. In that case, in the case of enums, for example, yeah, Swift can infer that and then ignore the rest. So our logic now is very explicit and we are not carrying over cases that will never happen. Finally, I would like to explore never in SwiftUI. You will get the idea in a moment. Let's see this example. It's a really basic example. We have a C stack, then a B stack, and then an image, a text, and a button. Again, nothing serious. However, I don't know if you already wonder one thing. How SwiftUI avoid an infinite loop reviewing all body properties in a subview? What I mean is that if you create a view in SwiftUI, you always need to confirm the protocol view and you need to say what is the type of body. You need to fulfill the requirements of protocol view. Yeah, remember, the requirements here are just an associated type body and a computed property body that we already know that it's here. But the question is, if all the time we need to fulfill body, then how can we stop? I mean, think about it. This content view has its own body, which is this thing, and then C stack has its own body, and then B stack, and then image, and then text, button, etc., etc. How can Swift identify when it's the root of the final case to review before actually moving back to the beginning and render the view? Believe it or not, never is involved here too. Yeah, and let me explore here. For example, we have image and text. Let's explore text. Yeah, in this case, text is just confirming equitable, but let's find out where is the declaration of text as a view. There you go. Here is the declaration of text confirming a view protocol. However, look at that. This body type alias, it's declared as a never type. What the hell is going on here? Well, it turns out that, as we saw in the previous example, in this case, we are sending a message to Swift that this particular body it's not required to be evaluated. Let me go back here. In this case, text, it's not implementing body. Yeah, internally, this is one of the views that it's making an exception in terms of setting up body. No, internally it's doing something. Let's imagine that text is actually made possible by, I don't know, UI kit internally under the hood. So yeah, in this case, body for text, it's not required. But text is not the only case. Let me go back to image. And yeah, image, it's also declaring the body as never, which means, again, image is doing its own version of how we need to render an image in SwiftUI, but it's confirming view. So what I mean by that is that there are two types of view in SwiftUI. One is for the views that you are building. In this case, I'm building content view. This is the default way to use SwiftUI views: building, body property, and then putting inside other subviews. But there are other special kind of views that are provided by the framework. In this case, image, text, even B stack and C stack. Yeah, look at that. It's also declaring the body has never. All those views are primitive views, and the primitive views are built in through the SwiftUI team in Apple. Those are declaring the body has never. And for the requirements of Swift understands that when a body is declared has never, it doesn't have to check or go further about the body because the body does not exist for those views. But for the rest of views, yeah, of course, if you are confirming view protocol, you must declare body computed property. Actually, the only one here that is not setting the body has never is button. And yeah, this makes sense because body here is declared has a regular body with some view. It's from you to provide how we will display a button in order for you to customize how is the look and feel of the button. In this particular initialization, well, I think it's providing a default button layout, but internally it's using body in the declaration. You might wonder, hey, but then can I create a primitive view in Swift? Let's find out. Let's create a never view that will be a protocol that confirms view protocol. And here we will declare that our body is never. Very nice. Now let's create our implementation of this never view. It's still requiring us to provide the body property, so let's do that. But let's declare our body has fatal error. And just for fun, let's add a text here. Let's see then if we can replace whatever we have here with demo view. And let's run this. It's compiling, nice. Oops, but look at that. We got a crash. And not just that, it's a very specific fatal error saying that demo view might not have body equal to never. This is confusing because we already saw that the framework has some body equal to never. Yeah, that is true. However, this is a precondition that SwiftUI Framework made for us. You cannot declare primitive views. This is just for SwiftUI team, which makes sense because it's very dangerous to use never just for fun. But yeah, technically speaking, you can do it. Yeah, I didn't get any issue or compilation issue. However, by definition, yeah, this is crashing your app. And SwiftUI team, what I read in other forums, for their views, in this case, image, text, or whatever, they are just making an exception with some assertion statements. I wanted to bring you this because this is probably even a good interview question on something for you to understand more in detail about how SwiftUI is taking from never type. As you saw earlier then, never type provides a way for us to escape from the program of the application and crash immediately because, well, we got a fatal error or anything else that we cannot continue if that happens. We also saw that if we don't need to validate any specific root of our logic, we can use never to tell in Swift with, for example, result or even with publishers to avoid the compiler to identify or explicitly say those cases. And for the case of SwiftUI, never is a great tool to tell in Swift when it must stop digging into the recursive functions to identify what is the next view to create. I don't know you, but this is really interesting. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this exploration? Fun fact, if we go to view declaration, never is actually a view. Boom. That's it for this video. I learned a lot today about never. and how to use it really well in our applications. Just don't create buttons to exit your app, because that's not going to work for App Store. I would like to know if you learn also something valuable here. Let me know in the comments, and also tell me if you are using Never in your development. I would like to know your comments and your feedback about it. This Monday starts WWDC 21, so I'm really excited, and I think you are really excited too. Remember that we will cover the highlights of the keynote, but also we will cover a State of Union. So stay tuned, because this week will be awesome. Thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Swift and Tips, and let me know which video you'd like to see next. That's it for me. Thank you so much, and have a great day.